Amani,
Hi,
you?
how are you?
I'm great, thank you. Andy, Dulce, nice to see you
Hey, hello.
guys. All right, so this is an important panel, like I said, especially in the brand world where fidelity is everything on how their brand is represented, how their spokespeople are represented, how the consumers and their audience are represented within their spatialized context. And I know you guys are experts in this field, so I'm looking forward to hearing from you on this topic. So Dulce, take it away.
Oh, thank you. Good to see you again, Sophia. It's been a while. Hi, Emily. Hi, Andy. It's nice to meet you guys in person and virtually. Um, I would like to start by getting an intro of both of you, and then we can kick off the discussion. I think we have one more person showing up, but when she comes in, we will intro her also. But Emily, let's start with you.
Hi, everybody. Just get my bio. So I'm an instructional designer and researcher and also voice user interface designer. I'm currently pursuing my doctoral degree in instructional technology and media program at Columbia University. And I co-host events, Metaverse Adventures, and others in iLearn conference. And I founded like a conference and for language educators. My research interest relates to conversational AI, extended reality for education, immersive storytelling, intelligent NFTs, and decentralized autonomous organizations. Happy to be here.
Very, very cool. And Andy, you're a bit of a celebrity to me. I've heard your name several times, so it's really cool to finally meet you. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I think a mix of an artist, a producer, and a tech geek. I love playing at the intersection of creativity and business and technology. So I've been a serial entrepreneur with three exits before I landed at YouTube, running product for creators, running the monetization program, YouTube Analytics, and then helping launch 360 Video back in 2015. But then for the last 5 years, have been focused on volumetric video, the photoreal capture of the human performance. And so started a company called Arcturus, which does post-processing and editing and streaming of the photoreal holographic human performance. And so I've been focused in that area for quite a bit, but most recently have been working with Cirque du Soleil founder Guy Laliberté on how he's reimagining what Cirque can be in a Web 3.0 environment and in a metaverse environment. So it's a digital entertainment company, and we've done a whole host of wild and crazy prototypes this year. A lot involving some avatars and other platforms. So I can approach things from the studio side there.
That's amazing. That's so cool. I mean, everything you just talked about is just really amazing. Yep. And then we have Veronica. I don't have your last name,
Hello.
Veronica, but it's nice meeting you.
Yeah,
Um,
thanks.
if
Thanks
you could give us a little intro.
you for hosting me here, and I'm thrilled to be surrounded by so many knowledgeable. So a little bit about myself. Uh, I I have two hats. I've been around 15 years on the space of computer graphics and computer vision, and trying to solve the problem of how can we automate the creation. So back into
Oh, I think we lost her. Oh, I think we might have lost you, Veronica. Okay, we'll come back to you when you can get your audio working. Okay, so I'll just do my intro. I'm a virtual world builder, avatar creator. I've been a digital citizen now for over 30 years. Bought my domain name dulce.com back in 1996 and really saw the internet as being the end all be all for everything society engagement. Way back then, I saw it, and even engaged a little bit in artificial intelligence understandings back in the 90s, playing with these ideas, not really knowing fully that I was literally preparing myself for virtual experiences, augmented reality, mixed reality, and that came in 2010 after many years of working on the internet. And at that moment, I realized that this was the future. Mixed reality was where it was all going, and I needed to be a part of it. So, just been working hackathons and building out pipelines around WebXR and running different companies around metaverse creation, such as Emerspace, and now back end infrastructure startup that I'm working for called Perception Grid. So it's all based on fortifying the systems that help us have better spatialized experiences and experience things like digital twins. And having that one-to-one locked in throughput from the digital into the real world, and it being seamless with zero latency and such. So I'm really excited to ask Andy about his experience at YouTube, building out these 360 video content pieces, and how that kind of experience relates to where we're going right now with transitioning from being more of a uh, real world workforce, and moving that into more of a metaverse. I feel like there might be some correlation there between how it went from flat 2D video into 3D, and what kind of lessons we could learn from that when creating digital twins and getting people adopted to it.
Sure. No, that's a great question. Especially we can look back on years of history and see from hindsight what what actually happened. So I was tasked with working with the top YouTube creators to create lighthouse content, like what's the first stuff that's going to blow people away when we launch this feature. And so and we experimented in a few different areas, from gaming to action to scripted work and a variety of things, because we weren't sure what was going to stick. And what we learned, over time is that while we thought 360 video was like the coolest thing when we launched it, hey, it's a tool that can be used for great effect, but you always want to use the right tool for the right job you're trying to solve. So we learned from that if your story is focused on the environment, or if you're trying to create something that is in which you want to share the environment, then 360 video is great for that. If you're trying to tell a story with a character, then it just doesn't work, and that's okay, because it's a tool, and the tool should be used for how it's used best. So I kind of see that happening again, in a lot of work in the metaverse, both from there's a whole Web3 angle of that. And then the platforms like VR Chat and AltSpace, and lots of development there. There's a lot of experimentation, and I think what we're going to learn, we're going to see a few things that we're going to see some creators that just naturally gravitate to this medium, and some who are established that are going to say, you know what, this isn't for me. Isn't how I tell my story, or this isn't necessarily how I want to do my brand. So I guess the takeaway would be, let's make sure you're using the right tool for what you want to achieve. And we've got a great panel and all sorts of folks who have access and knowledge of so many different tools. So there's a lot of fun experimentation, but it's going to be hard to, in my view, for it to have one thing fit everybody.
Right. And Amity, you were mentioning that you do machine learning with some of the programs that you work with. How is machine learning and AI influencing the way you approach digital twins and avatar creation?
Well, actually, it's not only machine learning. I experimented with it and experimented with the GPT-3, and also voice user interface design, like when you design Alexa skills, for example, or when you design a persona for like companies like Soul Machines for marketing, and also other companies which use the AIML. And the thing is that I experienced at the very beginning is voice user interface design, which actually talks about the happy path, which is usually what could be what your client wants, but probably it's not the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I usually advise, like when I get referrals from companies that want to to create a coach, for example, or an avatar for their brand, and I would say, yes, you know what you want, but do you know what your user wants?
Mm-hmm.
Did you do interviews? Did you interview users? What is the feedback from the users? What happens when they are frustrated? And actually, this comes from research. So I started doing research on chatbots and avatars in 2014, but then I started thinking I need more. So my research was in terms of education, but then I realized that I wouldn't understand that unless I read research in terms of marketing and branding.
Mm-hmm.
And there are lots of interesting things that would actually, in research, that talks about the mechanic and humanic factors in designing personas or in designing conversational agents or avatars. And so these functional, mechanic, or humanic factors, they are related in terms of what kind of service integration and interaction are you looking for.
Mm-hmm.
What affects the user on an emotional level, for example? What is the kind of interaction? Is it text based? Is it voice based? What are the humanic clues, like the personification and adaptivity? And I've seen some frameworks like Microsoft, for example, where they have the best one for, in my opinion, because it's not that you first design the avatar persona,
Mm-hmm.
but also it fluctuates in terms of the user interaction. So how it can interact with the user or the consumer when the consumer is frustrated or when it is excited, or so it kind of changes in order to adapt to the consumer's needs. And so this actually affects two things that I found out in terms of way how we design, which is the pragmatic and the hedonic effects.
Mm-hmm.
So the pragmatic refers to the ease of use, the satisfaction from the part of the user, and the hedonic, which is like trust, social presence, rapport, likability, engagement with the user. So yeah, I find it like when we try to understand the user more, we may get to create avatars that can actually represent branding. And I've seen that also in one of the amazing projects, NFT projects that I'm a member of. It's Alethea AI, and Alethea, they created avatars. They created the intelligent metaverse, and this is a service to the metaverse, and it's based on five AI engines. And also the users, they can actually kind of tweak or the personality of the avatar to their own needs. So it was really an interesting example.
That's interesting. You're touching on identity and avatars, and I want to get back to that. But I would like to let Veronica have her opportunity to introduce herself, and then I can ask her a question about her motivations in avatar development based on her intro. Go ahead, Veronica.
Okay, this doesn't go down again. So just to try to keep it short, I'm a computer graphics and human computer interaction and vision. So we tackled the six that I've been working on how we can automate the character creation process, a
Mhm.
pipeline point of view. So the ultimate vision or the goal when I started was allow anyone that has no engineering background or no articulate in a very simple way a digital human.
Mhm.
So it took us for, and I think we finally managed to automate the whole process. So you can just take a selfie, digital human of yourself or any picture that you upload. We can probably talk about, I think here in the panel there's
Yeah.
people with expertise on photography, and we can talk about different type of quality if that's needed.
Yeah, I would actually love to talk about the pipelines, but I would like to take it back to something Andy was mentioning about expectation that Amini also touched on. The I would like to talk about the needs versus the wants when it comes to some of these creations and these projects with avatars. Um, for instance, I was mentioning to Karen that I'm currently working with several different clients on avatar creation, and quite a bit of my conversations have been around really boiling down to the essence of what they are really looking for. And half the time it's all dependent on the end platform that this avatar is going to be used on. That really determines how the fidelity of the avatar, um, how intricate and animated it will be, how interactive it'll be. Um, can I ask you, like, how do you deal with clients, their expectations, their wants, and their needs? And I'd like to start with Andy first, and then make the rounds around, and then we can talk about pipeline with you, Veronica.
No, that's a great question, and like I think I've got a good story to relate to that. I guess at Henai World, my client is Guy's creative team, for example, who have wild, amazing, just high quality visual ideas, and we wanted to create an experience, a metaverse experience, in which the avatars that were created are just surreal. They're amazing. They're all sorts of uh, just wild and like you've never seen. And so there was no tool to really support that. Um, but I got us to run an experiment on Altface, because what I tried to boil it down to is they were initially focused on the visual quality, right? That like it's got to be Circa's high quality visual and performance. So we need to do something that's super high res, high quality. But in talking them through what they wanted, what they wanted is connection, as a goal. And so we ended up doing this experiment in Altspace where we created this amazing surreal forest environment where there's a live DJ performing underneath these large mushrooms, and you're about the size of a frog. But Altspace is very limited in the comparatively with avatars and what you can do with the avatar. You don't have legs. You've got very minimal amount of expression.
Mm-hmm.
But in the testing that we did, and was able to convince the creative team, is that after just a few, like half a minute, we forgot that there's no legs. We forgot that there's some of these limitations. But what was important is that we had the hand motions, and we could see the eyes, we can see the talking, and then there was movement and connection, and it created all these tender moments in this experiment that we created. So the take, and it made a believer from out of the team who thought it has to be absolutely high quality fidelity from an avatar, and that's not necessarily the case. If you want connection, if you want some sort of experience, it's possible in other ways, and that's what Altspace is good for.
Yeah, I would also like to say that some of these low poly blend shaped avatar faces can have a more tender, caring, warm feel to them than some of the avatars that have really beautiful, high end, very expressive, emotive facial features. And I say that because sometimes they can come off very uncanny, corpse like. Um, versus where it's low poly, so your mind automatically just says, okay, it's a cartoon, or it's a cartoon version of this person. So you kind of like ignore it. It's a doll. You're talking to a doll that's talking to you back to you. Where when it looks like a human and it feels like a human and it starts talking and it's moving a little bit robotic, it just gives you that uncanniness. And I've experienced that in platforms like Sansar and a couple of other ones that use really high end fidelity looking avatars. So it's interesting to see, to understand that, bringing the expectation to a level that feels comfortable, and explaining that to people, like, you want to have really beautiful high end looking things, but you also have to remember that we're dealing with the brain, we're dealing with neural connections, and we're dealing with how people perceive things around them, and that uncanniness can be off putting. And I love the alt space avatars. I think they're fine for me. But we have brands like Vogue and
Right.
Dior and
Yep. Fashion,
Valentino, high
fashion,
fashion brands. Yeah,
yeah,
and they're stepping into the
photoreal,
game.
highest quality. Yep.
But they're partnering with Ready Player Me, which is doing very similar to what Amini was mentioning, or Veronica, I'm sorry, talking about taking a picture and turning that into an avatar, but it's at the low poly end. Um, that's an interesting. I wonder what the expectation setting was there when talking to Vogue and Dior on, well, I know you have all these really high intricate dresses, but we're going to make it really low poly for mass consumer consumption. Well, what do you? How do you? Well, let me ask Veronica first, because you definitely, this is your wheelhouse with those kinds of avatars. How do you feel about that? Like, what are the challenges around the needs and wants with clients? What are your challenges around expectations and needs and wants with avatars?
Yeah, that's a really great question because I was working on designing an avatar like a coach, or a facilitator for sessions, like an educator.
Mhm.
And I was just designing it as like I'm designing any avatar, the persona, the qualities, the attributes, and stuff like that. And then I interviewed users, and I had them interact with the avatar. And then I realized, and I really agree with Andy when he said testing, testing, which is really a great thing. So yeah, when we test, we understand user needs, and we understand their expectations, and we kind of, because it's an iterative process, so we kind of go back and probably change in the avatar's persona, how the avatar interacts. And because the persona that I was designing had this characteristic of being a coach. So I realized from the user's interaction that they wanted someone to give advice, not like Siri and not like
Mhm.
Alexa, for example. So I felt like the difference, like the expectation, because if this is a coach or if this is an educator or something, so it has to have the characteristics of that person in real life. And the interaction is really different from other experiences.
And that's a very important thing that you're touching on, is identity with avatars, whether it's you as the person controlling the avatar, that your identity, or you're creating an avatar with an identity that is tied to a brand, that is speaking for a brand, or speaking for, be acting as an agent or a replicant for somebody. The digital twinning of it all. How do you guys feel about identity? What does it mean to you? What does it mean to your connection to your avatars? I personally have a lot of high opinions about that. I've been with avatars for several years now, representing myself as avatars. But I'd like to hear what you guys have to say about that. And either one of you can start.
I'll make a quick interesting observation that before the NFT cycle of the last 2 years, that forming identity, there was a lot of focus on, all right, personalization of what I can do to maintain an identity that might go across different areas. But what's interesting is that after the NFT, with NFTs, then you started to have collections of things. And so now avatars from an identity standpoint seems to be moving less from just self-expression to more of like group identification signaling. Like, hey, if I want an avatar that looks like an ape, it's kind of a call out to this is the crowd that I run with, which is kind of interesting in some sort of group conformity way.
That is a really interesting. It's a very like fraternities or sororities or just having some kind of members only click event. Very much with Snoop Dogg and Eminem right now with the Bored Apes and Sandbox. And then again, that's another one where you've got these really high end profile musical artists with a label like Interscope working with NFT company or a metaversal company, Sandbox, that creates NFTs, that produces NFTs and NFT metaversal spaces. But again, it's very low poly, very like Minecraft looking style of avatars. But that's what's being sold, and they're in the billions. These Bored Apes, they're like the collection that the floor price is like $1 billion, crazy amount of money like that. So yeah, it's interesting that that's where we're heading.
Thank you guys for joining. Avatars is always an interesting conversation to have. It's one of the most fun, obviously.
And I don't know if I don't know if Veronica got to say, but her company, she has an amazing company with an amazing tool called Didimo. So DIDIMO.co. You should definitely check it out. Within seconds, take your picture and create a three.
Yeah, I did. It's really great. Yeah.
So
I've done it as well. Yeah, it is really incredible. Yeah, I definitely encourage people to check it out. Thank you guys so much for joining us for the summit and sharing your wisdom with the world. Appreciate it.